Joining me now is Jacob Oliva. He is Arkansas's Secretary of Education. Mr. Secretary, always good to have you with us. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, Roby. I'm excited to be here.
Let's begin with the LEARNS Act implementation. It was about this time a year ago that the plan was introduced. It's obviously been enacted subsequently. Tell me are there any parts of it that haven't been fully enacted yet? Kind of what is still percolating?
So it's great. When we think of Learns, we think of probably the most comprehensive, robust educational reform that anybody's ever seen, probably across the United States. And what's exciting about that is it's really reimagining how we're going to support students and families, everything from early learning to what's happening in K-12, and then how do we transition to success beyond high school and post-secondary opportunities. So part of what happened is once the bill got signed into law, and you ask about implementation, the bill gets signed into law, and then our agency is tasked with implementing the components of that bill. And we've been tasked with promulgating 74 rules that we're going through right now. And we were really transparent and committed up front that when we were writing the rules on what this is going to look like in action, that we engage the public and listen to our educators and stakeholders from all over the state. And we put out a call to action and said, we need people to help work on the rules. And we established a working group. We had over 1,000 people respond that said that they're willing to help out. So we're always grateful for the true scholars that exist in our state that were willing to come and meet and persevere. So our board is reading and reviewing a lot of rules. We've got probably about a dozen or so rules out for public comment now. We receive feedback from the public. We'll take that through the legislative process, and we'll work towards implementation. But what I think is exciting is as we've gone through with implementation, what we're really creating is a system that's aligned. And some of the components of how we transition a student from early learning to K-12 and post-secondary may have been siloed or they may have been fractured and not unified and coordinated. So things that we've already hit the ground running in year one of implementation is we've hired just about 120 literacy coaches that are working in DNF schools. They were boots on the ground in August on the day one of schools to support teachers and students with filling in those gaps that they may have in some of their foundational literacy skills. Our agency just rolled out a big initiative to support students and families and schools with high impact tutoring. We know that sometimes even dealing with kind of academic learning loss with the pandemic, some students may have some gaps in their literacy or numeracy skills. So we're able to provide high impact tutoring grants to school districts to help support and improve that. We're reimagining the early learning space, making sure that we identify local leads, and we're going to continue to build that out and make sure that any family that wants to participate in high quality childcare or pre-kindergarten learning opportunities has access to do so. And this work is getting started. And I think one of the biggest announcements that we had even just this recently is on April 1st, we opened up our second round of educational freedom account applications, which is something that we're able to implement in year one and make sure that parents feel empowered and have a seat at the table. And then most importantly, I think for some of our educators out there, we are able to raise starting teacher salary. We were ranked about 48th in the nation in starting teacher salary, moved that needle to the top 5 in the first year with implementing a baseline teaching salary across the state of Arkansas, $50,000 a year. So we've been really excited to take some great legislation, put it into action. We haven't arrived yet. There's still a lot of work to do, but I think people are excited with the progress that we're making.
All right, lots to digest there. So I'm going to take some of those pieces that you
Sure.
just outlined in some singular fashion here. Let's begin with the teacher pay salary that you mentioned there. You boosted those first time salaries to $50,000. Have you seen it? Is it anecdotal, or do you have anything statistically that would suggest that this has been beneficial for teacher recruitment, particularly with young teachers into the profession?
Yeah, so probably a little bit of both. I know definitely when we talk to some of our superintendents that border other states that when they posted positions, they were getting applications from their neighboring states saying that they wanted to be a part of what Arkansas is doing, because we know in education, the greatest investment that we can make are those teachers that are working with our students each and every single day. And we know the greatest impact on improving and learning is having high quality teachers. Well, that comes with recruiting, recognizing, and retaining them. So getting to that $50,000 salary base is just a start. We've heard from our small and rural communities that this is a game changer, where they're able to compete for teachers to go into communities where before their starting salaries maybe $15,000 a year or less. So being able to raise those salaries in small and rural districts, help larger districts to be more competitive by giving them additional dollars to raise or teacher salaries, has been extremely beneficial. And what's great about the structure is it gives the control back to the school district to prioritize where they want those dollars to go. If they want to use those dollars for recognizing years of service, advanced credentials, hard to staff areas, we've seen our districts embrace this initiative, be very creative in establishing those teacher salary schedules. Every teacher in the state that was already above the minimum salary received at least a $2,000 raise. So we're working with districts. We're getting ready to go in legislative session as we go through the budgeting process to help continue to support this initiative, because we're committing to funding it in perpetuity and make sure that we can continue to attract and retain the best teachers that we can find.
You've touched on it. There was a lot of criticism from tenured teachers, teachers that had been in the profession for a long time, that there was that you mentioned the $2,000 bonuses, but that might not have been as robust as what they were hoping for in terms of their longevity in the service. Is there
Yeah,
is
but
there
I want to state though, that wasn't a $2,000 bonus. It was a $2,000 increase to their salary. In the existing salary schedule, not one step was over $2,000 or even came close to $2,000. So everybody was making more money than they would have anticipated the previous year. But that's why we also felt really committed, the governor and the legislature, to put aside dollars in a categorical to recognize those teachers that have a high impact. So that's one of the rules that we're promulgating right now. We put a work group together where those teachers with years of service that have evidence of impact, that are mentoring new teachers and going above and beyond, they're going to be able to qualify for some additional dollars as well.
All right. So there will be new money for existing teacher pay, is what I hear you saying in this upcoming fiscal session. That will be a particular budget item.
Yeah, so I think that's a great question. So it's important to kind of look at how did the LEARNS funding kind of happen with the school district's budget. So the school districts have a very complicated formula that's called a foundation allocation for how students are based, and then those formulas get prorated by a bunch of different merits and factors to determine the dollars that the state gives the school districts. Well, the funding for LEARNS and the teacher salary allocation came out of a complete different pot of money. So the districts are going to get the dollars that they got last year and historically this year. And we're really thankful in the governor's budget proposal to see about a $200 per student increase in the dollars that they're going to get. We're still going to fund the teacher salary allocation, but giving the school districts some more unrestricted dollars will help them build out that salary schedule, as well as we got to recognize our classified staff. You know, we talk about the teachers having the greatest impact on the students, but I can tell you firsthand from working in schools for many years, we got to thank our bus drivers, our custodial staff, our paraprofessionals, our food service folks, our maintenance people. It takes an educational family to make a school run. So anytime we can give school districts and leaders some additional unrestricted funds, it helps them build out salary schedules to recognize those folks as well.
Let's talk about education freedom accounts. This allows that public school, that per pupil funding that you're talking about 90% of it to move with the students to other options such as private schools or homeschooling. What were year one kind of roughly numbers? I don't think you guys met your fully budgeted expectations, which is okay because that just means you spent less money. But where were you in terms of meeting or exceeding expectations for year one? And what do you have expectations for in year two?
Yeah, so one of the great parts about LEARNS is it recognizes that a one-size-fits-all approach doesn't meet the needs of all students and families. And I can tell you, the majority of the students in the state of Arkansas are going to have their educational needs met in the public schools, which is why LEARNS is really investing and public school education, and making sure that every student has an opportunity to thrive, not just to participate, but to thrive and excel in their local public school. I know I went to public school, my children go to public school. The public school is the heart of many communities, and we want to continue to make sure that happens. But sometimes a local school may not have the right program for a family, or families are looking for additional options, which is why we established a educational freedom account. So in year one, it was a little bit restricted. It was restricted to students that were attending a failing school. It was restricted to students that are already in a prior scholarship, like Succeed Scholarship, and other varying qualifications. So in year one, we had about 5,400 students in the state participate, which was a little bit under what was allocated by the legislature, which I think is okay because it was year one. We want to get this off the ground and get it going. We had approximately about 100 schools in the state participate. I think there was a lot of schools that were kind of maybe sitting on the sideline waiting to see how it worked out, and kind of questioning whether or not they wanted to go in, because part of the commitment for the school is that they got to meet some accountability expectations that they may not have met before. So when we're creating these choice opportunities for families, we need to make sure they're of value and of quality. And so in year one, I feel like our team and the leaders out there in the state did a great job making sure we're doing that. And then as we get ready for year two, within about 48 hours of announcing that the portal was open, we've already received over 2,000 new applications. So there's a lot of interest in looking at some different educational opportunities for families.
One of the criticisms, I believe it was in a Democrat Gazette article, found that the analysis found that about 95% of the education freedom accounts were used by either students already in private school or entering that kindergarten portal for private school. Did that surprise you?
Well, no, I mean, it goes back to parents are looking for options. And one of the major criterias for participating in year one was that you're already participating in the program. So all of the families that were in the Succeed program may not have been limited to kindergarten. They were in K through 12 all across the spectrum. Well, of course, they're going to have a high number of folks that are representing the first year, because the scholarship program is not new to the state. It's been up and running for several years now. So that program got folded into the new AFAs. And then when you're looking at prioritizing active military families that are looking for the best education options for their families, prioritizing students that may be experiencing homeless or being part of our foster education program. Is this a new program from them? Maybe, but these are some real fragile students that may be looking for a smaller classroom or more personalized curriculum. And if we're able to provide that in the state, I think that's a win for everybody.
One of the things that I think has come out recently too, is we're going to be moving to a new student testing assessment system, Atlas versus ACT Aspire. Tell me why Atlas is a better barometer for gauging where our students are.
Sure. Well, first, it's a great acronym. It's the Arkansas Teaching and Learning Assessment System. So it's a system of assessments that is personalized to the state of Arkansas. It's not a national normed assessment that's measuring career readiness. It's what we refer to as a criterion referenced assessment that was specifically written and designed around the criteria that we say as a state in standards is what we expect students to know and learn. So for the first time in quite a while in the state, we're going to have standards written by Arkansas educators, professors, and leaders specific to what we expect Arkansas students to know and learn, especially in reading and math in grades K through 10, as well as a test whose test items and blueprint were built on those standards to measure exactly what those expectations are. So this is going to give parents, students, teachers, and families much better information on how their student is performing on meeting grade level criteria and expectations. And I can tell you one thing, as we were going throughout the state when I first got here just over a year ago, and meeting with superintendents and teachers and leaders on things that they want to see our state improve. Building out a new assessment was high on a lot of these educators' lists and a lot of our experts' lists. And one of the things that was very glaring is a desire to go back to end of course exams for high school level content instead of grade level exams, because that's what teachers are teaching. So this new assessment system is doing just that. We're going back to end of course exams in biology, in algebra, and geometry, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it is. And I can tell you, I think about a ninth grade biology teacher who knows their content. They are tasked with a course code that says we're going to teach biology. That's a life science. They were giving an assessment that measured grade level science. So that assessment may have been 40% physical science. So oftentimes we put teachers in these moral predicaments. Do I stop teaching biology to teach to a test to make sure our students do well on this test? Or do I not care how students do on a test because I'm teaching biology? That's confusing. That kind of lack of clarity needs to come out of our classrooms. We want to tell teachers, this is what we expect you to teach. And we want to be very clear and not surprise you on how we're going to measure whether or not students are learning. And then if students are mastering that, how can we excel those students? If students need a little bit additional support, what is it that we can do? That's the role of assessments. It shouldn't be a surprise. It should be a complement to the great teaching and learning that's happening.
Will we be, I asked this question out of ignorance, not not because I'm trying to get you on anything, but I don't know the answer to it. Will we be able to see how our students compare nationally at the third grade level for reading and math, the eighth grade level for reading and math, if they're not taking this ACT Aspire test and they're taking this Atlas test? How are we going to compare where we are with students across the nation?
Sure. So there's a couple ways. One, not every state uses the same test. In fact, Arkansas was the only state in the nation using the Atlas assessment and the AC, or excuse me, not the Atlas, the ACT Aspire assessment. And ACT discontinued it and often said this isn't really a tool to measure student achievement and performance. It's a predictor that if a student is on track to meet their proficiency levels, that when they get to 10th grade, they would get to at least a 22 on the ACT, which is a predictor score on how well a student's going to do in college. It's not giving you information around how well students are able to really do in math and science and reading at that grade level. It's predicting the trajectory that you're on. So most states have an assessment that's unique to them. You can norm those assessments. In fact, as we get new assessments and we get the raw data back, we'll go through what's called a standard setting process. The psychometricians will actually be able to do equipercentile linkings to the previous assessments so that we can measure continuity and growth to see, even though we switch new assessments, are we improving learning overall? But then there's also in education world, there's an assessment called the NAEP assessment, and that's called the National Assessment of Education Progress. And they do a random sample assessment in all 50 states. And they really target in on grade 4 reading and math and grade 8 reading and math. And that's what they use, that data, to determine the nation's report card. So our state is participating in that. In fact, we've already had that round of sampling. We expect that data to come out usually around December as we're moving forward. So there's a couple different ways to measure how our students are not only doing our state assessments for state accountability, but we're also going to be able to measure how well our students are doing on the nation's report card.
All right, that answered that question. Last question for you. It's a political question, but it's got profound policy implications. So I want to get your take on this. I think the governor has maybe not come out publicly and said this, but politically, she has lent some of her political strength to it. This proposed amendment that would change education policy in the state of Arkansas, universal pre-K, after-school programs, private schools being held to the same accreditation and testing standards as public schools. Is this good public policy?
Listen, Learns is good public policy. This is a product that was grown from the legislature, listening to stakeholders, signed into law by the governor. That is how legislation should come about and help govern and guide the state. When you look at this robust educational reform, I can tell you that we are hearing from other states every single day asking us, how did Arkansas do what they're doing? There is more excitement happening around our literacy initiatives, our choice initiatives, our CTE pathways in work, and how we're reimagining early learning and post-secondary attainment. We're not only getting calls from other states, we've even done calls with other countries, as far as New Zealand, saying, we've read about Learns. We want to take some of that and do that here. So anybody that wants to take a step to fight for failure in the state of Arkansas to bring us backward to pre-learns, I think is misguided and is not the right direction for that we're working on for improving education here.
But just to make sure I'm clear, you think this amendment is a step backwards? It makes some investments of some things that you've talked about.
You say it makes some investments, but it doesn't put a dollar tag to it. So it has a lot of great suggestions on how to improve learning, saying, wouldn't it be great if everything was hypothetical and we could achieve all these things? There's some things that need to have some realistic numbers behind, not bankrupting the state when you look at how we're going to prioritize services. And I think we have good policy. If people think that they can help improve the policy we have in place right now, then they can work with the legislature. They can give us a call. We'd be happy to meet with anybody to talk about improving learning, because that's what we're doing. And we're talking about building systems that support students. And I see a lot of people have a lot of ideas that are trying to protect adults and the work that they've always done. And when you keep protecting and maintaining that status quo, we've been ranked 43rd in the nation for far too long in education. The initiatives we're working on now, we're going to start getting data to see those numbers increase, and we need to keep that momentum moving forward.
I think the supporters of the amendment would disagree on a few of those things.
You know what, though,
They
Roby?
would
My
love to
phone's
debate
never
you, I
rang.
think.
I'd love to meet with them.
Well,
My phone's never rang.
we're out of time, so we'll leave that one for future discussion. How about that?
Sounds great.
He is Jacob Oliva. He's the Secretary of Education for the state of Arkansas. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us.
Anytime. Appreciate you. Thank you.